Welcome to Afterlife Message, where we explore incredible stories of second chances, the afterlife, and the mysteries beyond. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the bell icon so you never miss a moment of these fascinating journeys. Let us begin the discussion.
All right, so get this. We've got this article about a woman, Sarah, who had like a near-death experience.
Oh, wow.
And it's wild.
Yeah.
It's got all these crazy details about what she saw, what she learned, while she was basically,
Not alive.
Not alive, exactly.
It's fascinating, right? These accounts, they always grab you,
Absolutely.
because they're about these huge mysteries. We all think about life, death, what it all means.
Right.
What I find so interesting is that even though every near-death experience is different, there are these common threads, these patterns that run through so many of them.
Yeah, it's like our brains, when they're faced with the ultimate unknown,
Right.
they kind of tap into this shared human experience.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so this woman, Sarah, she's a teacher, early 40s.
Okay.
She's driving one night, it's raining, and she skids off the road, hits a tree.
Oh, wow.
And that's where things get interesting.
Okay.
She's suddenly outside of her body, looking down at the accident.
That's so common in NDEs, that out-of-body thing.
Yeah.
Some researchers think it might be unusual brain activity during trauma, but there's still so much we just don't know.
Yeah.
What's interesting about Sarah's case is that she feels incredibly peaceful.
Really?
Even though she can see her own injured body down there.
No fear.
None, just peace.
Wow.
And then she starts moving towards this brilliant light.
Okay, this I've heard before.
Right. It comes up a lot in NDEs, often connected to feelings of transcendence, like moving to a higher realm. It's almost like this universal symbol.
Yeah.
Drawing people in,
Okay, so she's heading toward this light, and in this light, she sees a figure.
Okay.
And she knows instantly it's Jesus.
Wow.
She talks about this overwhelming feeling of love and kindness coming from him.
That sense of unconditional love, that acceptance.
Yeah.
It's a powerful theme in so many NDEs.
Really?
No matter what the person's background is, it speaks to this deep human longing for connection, for belonging.
Especially when faced with death, right?
Exactly.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
She starts asking these deep questions.
Like what?
About life, about existence.
Makes sense.
And according to the article, Jesus gives her answers.
Wow. So it was like a direct line.
I know, right?
To the divine.
So, of course, she asks the big one. What's the purpose of mankind? Why are we here?
The ultimate question. Right.
Right.
Philosophers, theologians, everyone's been wrestling with that forever.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is that Jesus gives her an answer that's surprisingly simple,
Okay.
but also really profound.
I am intrigued.
He says mankind's purpose boils down to three things:
Okay.
knowing God, loving God, and sharing that love with others.
That's really interesting. It lines up with a lot of spiritual traditions. This idea that love is the driving force, and our purpose is to connect with that and express it.
But then she brings up the tough stuff.
Okay, let me guess, suffering.
Yeah, if God's all loving,
Right.
why so much suffering? Why bad things happen to good people?
Yeah, we all struggle with that. Right?
Totally.
It's the age-old problem of evil.
Yeah.
What's interesting here is that Sarah's experience tries to reconcile those two ideas.
A loving God and suffering.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm listening.
So the article says, Jesus explains that suffering stems from sin,
Sin.
a consequence of our free will. It's not God's original plan, but because we can choose,
Yeah.
we can also make bad choices, hurt ourselves and others.
Wait, so she's saying our choices,
Right.
even the small ones, create this ripple effect of suffering.
It's an interesting idea, right?
I don't know, is it too simple? I mean, what about natural disasters or illnesses? Is it all our fault?
That's a great question, and it gets into this huge debate
About,
free will versus determinism.
oh yeah.
Is everything decided already, or do our choices really shape things?
We could do a whole other deep dive just on that.
Totally.
Okay, but back to Sarah's experience.
Okay.
So, suffering, not God's intention, but a byproduct of free will.
Right.
But the article goes on.
Oh.
It says Jesus also emphasizes that suffering can be a source of growth.
Interesting.
Like, it can bring us closer to God.
That resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah.
People who've gone through tough times and found meaning in their struggles.
Right.
It's not about glorifying suffering, of course, but acknowledging that it can make us stronger, more compassionate.
Yeah, I get that. It's like even in the darkest moments, there's potential for growth.
A powerful message for sure.
So she's had this deep talk about meaning, suffering, all that.
Right.
And she just assumes she's staying in this, like, heavenly realm. But Jesus tells her, nope, not your time yet.
Oh, wow.
She still has things to do back on earth.
That comes up a lot too, that sense of unfinished business. And it often leads to this renewed purpose, like
they've got to make the most of their time.
Exactly.
So what's her purpose?
Yeah.
What's she supposed to do back in the land of,
traffic
jams, exactly.
And grocery shopping.
And, all that.
Well, this is where it gets really practical.
Okay.
The article highlights how Jesus emphasizes love, forgiveness, helping those in need.
As ways to fulfill her purpose.
Exactly.
It's interesting because it's not some big world-changing mission, right? It's like, go back and be a good person.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it relatable.
Yeah.
It's not about achieving something extraordinary, but about living out these values every day.
It's about finding purpose in the ordinary.
Exactly.
Okay, he's got her marching orders, love, forgive, help others.
Got it.
But then she brings up something I think we've all wondered about.
What's that?
Other religions.
Oh.
Are they wrong?
Big question.
What about people who believe different things?
That gets into some really complex issues.
About?
Interfaith dialogue, religious pluralism.
Like how different belief systems can coexist.
Exactly.
So how does the article address that? What does Jesus say about other religions?
Well, according to the article, Jesus says God loves all people, no matter what they believe. He suggests there are many paths that can lead people to seek truth.
Many paths to truth, okay.
But then he also states that he is the way, the truth, and the life.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
He's saying God loves everyone, but also that he's the way.
Yeah, it's tricky. Right.
How does that work?
That's where we get into different theological interpretation.
Yeah.
Many traditions claim a unique path to salvation.
Right.
But also acknowledge the sincerity of other seekers.
So it's complicated.
It is.
But what's important is that Jesus, at least in Sarah's story, emphasizes not judging others.
For their beliefs.
Yeah, he urges her to show love and respect.
Okay.
Let her life be an example.
So it's about action, not judgment.
Exactly. So we've covered purpose, suffering, other religions. Is there anything else she asks about before heading back to reality?
Actually, that's where we see a shift in her questions. She moves away from the big existential stuff and starts asking about more worldly concerns.
Like what?
Global events, the environment, even animals.
It's like she's trying to connect these everyday things to this grand spiritual framework she's learned about.
Right. It's like, okay, I get the big picture, but how does it all fit in with what I see around me?
Exactly.
So she's going from the cosmic to the concrete.
I like that.
So what kind of worldly concerns is she asking about?
Yeah, give me the details.
Well, the article mentions she talks about seeing these scenes of incredible human kindness.
Okay.
People helping each other after natural disasters, families praying together, volunteers working in homeless shelters.
Well, that's nice.
But she also sees the darker side of humanity.
Yeah.
War, famine, cruelty.
Right, right.
And it really bothers her.
I get that.
She's wrestling with how good and evil can coexist in a world with a loving God.
That's such a human response,
It's
right?
Usually.
We see the beauty, the compassion, but also so much pain.
It's enough to make anyone question things.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's what makes Sarah's story so relatable. It doesn't shy away from those tough questions.
Right.
It acknowledges the messiness of life,
Yeah, the tension between our hopes and reality.
Exactly.
So what does she do with that tension?
Well, according to the article, she asks Jesus what one person can do.
In the face of all those problems.
Yeah, it's like she's feeling helpless.
Like her actions don't matter.
Right, like what difference can one person make?
I've totally felt that way before.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
Totally.
But what's interesting is how Jesus responds.
Okay.
He reassures her that even small acts of love can have a ripple effect.
Really?
He emphasizes it's not about the scale of our actions, the intention behind them.
That's powerful.
It is.
Like, don't underestimate the power of kindness.
Right, exactly.
It reminds me of that quote, be the change you wish to see.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not about being a superhero.
Right.
It's about those small acts of love.
And he takes it a step further.
How?
He emphasizes approaching our work as service to God.
Hmm.
He tells Sarah that any job can be a way to make the world better.
Any job.
From teacher to doctor to janitor.
Wow. That's such a beautiful way to reframe work, you know?
It is.
It's not just about the paycheck,
Right.
but about contributing to something bigger.
Exactly.
And what's interesting is that Sarah takes this to heart.
Really?
Yeah, she goes back to teaching with this renewed sense of purpose.
Wow.
She sees her students in a new light, finds joy in just teaching.
It's about finding meaning in the ordinary.
I love that.
It is beautiful.
Okay, but I gotta ask.
Yeah.
Did she only talk about serious stuff?
Oh, well.
Did she ask about, fun?
Actually, yes.
No way.
She was curious about whether it's okay to laugh, play, enjoy life.
I love that.
It's so human, right?
Totally.
We need that balance,
Yeah.
Joy and lightness, even amidst all the seriousness.
So what'd he say? Did he give her the green light to party?
He did.
Get out.
He reassures her that laughter, play, rest,
Yeah.
they're gifts from God,
Right.
meant to refresh us, help us appreciate life more.
So it's not about denying ourselves pleasure.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Okay, that's reassuring.
It is.
We can be joyful and purposeful.
Absolutely.
Okay, so work, fun,
Uh-huh.
but there's one more thing I gotta know.
Okay, what is it?
Animals.
Oh, interesting.
If I had a direct line to the divine, that's what I'd ask about.
So did Sarah ask about animals?
He did.
No way.
She was a big animal lover.
Okay.
She asked about their role in God's plan.
Like what?
Do they go to heaven? Do they suffer?
Big questions.
Should we treat them kindly? All that.
What did he say?
He reassures her. Animals are part of God's creation.
Oh, right.
They have a place in heaven. All creatures, human and animal, living in peace and harmony.
I love that.
But he didn't just talk about heaven.
No.
He talked about how we should treat them here.
Okay.
He urges Sarah to be kind to all creation,
Right.
caring for the environment, treating animals with respect.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It is, right? We're all part of this big web of life.
That's a key takeaway from Sarah's experience, I think.
What is?
This reminder that we're not alone,
Yeah.
connected to something much bigger.
And our actions have consequences.
Exactly.
So she's had this mind-blowing talk about purpose, suffering,
Right.
love, forgiveness, even animals.
A lot to process.
Then reality sets in.
Uh-oh.
She has to go back to her body.
Back to life.
I bet that was a letdown.
You think?
It's like coming home from an amazing vacation.
Right, back to reality.
Hard to adjust.
According to the article, as she's preparing to return, she starts to worry whether she'll remember everything,
Makes sense.
whether she'll be strong enough to live out this new purpose.
It's a lot of pressure.
It is.
She's realizing how huge this all is.
And feeling overwhelmed, probably.
Totally understandable.
But what's beautiful is that Jesus reassures her.
What does he say?
He tells her that while she might not remember every detail,
Okay.
the essential truths will stay in her heart. He promises to be with her always, guide her,
That's nice.
and he gives her one final instruction.
What's that?
Share her story.
Even if people don't believe her.
Even then,
That takes courage.
it does.
It's like he's saying, don't let fear silence you.
Right.
Share your truth.
Powerful stuff.
And according to the article, she does just that.
She shares her story.
Yeah, she wakes up in the hospital
Wow.
and starts telling everyone.
So she goes back to her life,
Uh-huh.
but she's not the same.
She's been changed by this.
Transformed.
Exactly.
And that transformation shows up in how she lives, the choices she makes.
All right, so we followed Sarah from her accident
Right.
to her encounter with Jesus
Uh-huh.
and her return.
Back to the world.
But the story doesn't end there.
Right. Not at all.
What happens next? How does this shape the rest of her life?
That's where we see the real impact of this NDE.
Okay.
The article goes on to detail how Sarah's life is profoundly changed.
In what ways?
She sees the world differently.
Mm-hmm.
Her relationships have a new depth.
Hmm.
And she finds this sense of purpose that guides her.
So it's not just about the experience itself,
Right.
but about how she integrates it into her life.
It's about the ripple effects.
And those ripple effects, that's what makes Sarah's story so inspiring.
It's a reminder that even with huge challenges and big questions, there's always hope.
Hope for.
Growth, finding meaning.
Even in the face of the unknown.
Exactly.
So she's back, but changed. Right. And now we see how it all plays out.
Yeah, and the article gets into the specifics. She starts noticing things she hadn't before, like her student struggles.
Okay.
She felt more empathy for them, more patient.
Like her heart opened up.
Exactly.
But that's got to be tough too, right?
How so?
Now you're carrying the weight of their problems more intensely.
That's true.
Did you talk about how she dealt with that?
She did. She found comfort in prayer.
Makes sense.
But also journaling.
Oh, interesting.
Writing helped her process everything, make sense of it.
I can see how that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
And it's not just the big stuff, right?
Like what?
The meaning of life stuff.
Uh-huh.
But how those big ideas translate to everyday choices.
Right, the practical side.
Did she make any major life changes based on what she learned?
She did, actually.
Really? Like what?
She started volunteering at a soup kitchen.
Wow, okay.
Never done it before. But it fit with that call to service she received.
Like she was drawn to it.
Yeah, not out of obligation.
But because it resonated with her new understanding. But I gotta ask, was it all smooth sailing?
You know, it wasn't.
What do you mean?
The article talks about the difficulties she faced.
Like what?
One big one was people not believing her.
Oh, yeah, that's gotta be tough.
It was.
These experiences are so hard to explain.
They are.
Did she say how she handled the skepticism?
She did. It was really hard. Some friends and family dismissed it.
Right.
Others were curious but confused.
Yeah, I bet.
Definitely caused some friction.
It's like, how do you bridge that gap? Right.
You mean?
When you've had this experience that changes how you see the world, but others haven't.
It's a real challenge.
No easy answers.
But what's inspiring is that Sarah didn't let it shut her down.
She kept sharing her story.
Yeah, focused on those who are open.
That's brave.
It is, especially when you're feeling vulnerable.
And it's not just other people's reactions, right?
No.
There's the internal struggle, too.
Like what?
Trying to live up to this new understanding.
Oh, yeah, that pressure.
Did she talk about that?
She did. She's honest about not becoming perfect after the NDE.
That's reassuring, actually.
Right.
Like, okay, you have this insight, but you're still human.
Exactly.
Did she say how she dealt with that tension?
She talked about self-compassion.
Okay.
Recognizing that growth is a process.
Not a destination.
Right. Not about being perfect.
But about progress.
Yeah, striving to live by your values.
Even when you mess up.
Exactly.
Did she have any specific things that helped her?
She found a community of people with similar experiences.
Oh, like a support group.
Kind of. They shared stories, encouraged each other.
That makes sense.
When you've had an unusual experience, it helps to connect with those who understand.
Validation.
Right.
And support.
And she also talked about staying grounded.
In what way?
Daily routines, nature, music, loved ones.
Finding that balance.
The extraordinary and the ordinary.
I like that.
So, Sarah's story. It's powerful, inspiring.
Definitely.
But what does it mean for us listening? Those of us who haven't had an NDE,
right.
I think the beauty is that it speaks to universal themes.
Like what?
Finding purpose, facing suffering.
Making sense of our place in the world.
Exactly.
Even without an NDE, we can relate to those questions.
We can.
So it's not about the specifics of her experience.
Right.
But the broader messages.
The insight.
How she lived afterwards.
Exactly.
What can we apply to our own lives?
Regardless of our beliefs.
Yeah, what are the takeaways?
One big one is that we all have a purpose.
Okay.
A unique contribution. It might not be world-changing.
Right.
But it's still meaningful.
Finding those small ways to express love.
To serve others.
Make the world a little brighter.
Exactly.
Finding purpose in the ordinary.
Like Sarah with teaching, volunteering, her community.
Recognizing that small acts matter.
They do.
Another takeaway is self-compassion.
Oh, yeah, important one.
We're all on a journey.
We're going to make mistakes.
Not about being perfect.
Right.
But striving to live by our values.
Even when we fall short.
Progress, not perfection.
And Sarah's story also highlights community.
Finding your people.
Those who support you, challenge you, help you grow.
Faith community, friends, like-minded folks.
Having that support makes a difference.
Huge difference.
And finally, I think Sarah's story reminds us to stay open.
Open to
the possibility of something beyond what we see.
To the mystery.
Whether we believe in a higher power or just acknowledge the unknown.
Good sense of wonder.
It keeps us curious, humble, connected to something bigger.
Embracing the mystery.
And letting ourselves be transformed by it.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Sarah's NDE,
yeah,
I'm left with this feeling of hope.
Hope for what?
That even in the darkness, the doubt, there's potential for light, for growth, for meaning.
Beautiful. It's a powerful message to carry with us.
As we navigate our own journeys,
Sarah's story reminds us life is precious.
we have the power to make a difference.
And even in the face of the unknown,
We can find hope.
meaning connection.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of Sarah's near-death experience.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope it sparked some curiosity, some introspection,
Maybe even some inspiration.
to embrace your own journey with a little more heart.
And a little more wonder.
So she comes back, and she's different, right? Like, how did that actually play out in her life?
Yeah, that's the fascinating part. And the article really gets into it.
Oh, good.
Like, she starts noticing things she hadn't before.
Like what?
Like the struggles her students were going through. She felt way more empathy for them, more patience.
It's like her heart just, opened up, right?
Exactly.
But that's got to be tough, too, carrying that extra weight. Did you talk about how she handled that?
Yeah, she found comfort in prayer, which makes sense given everything.
Yeah, totally.
But also journaling, like a lot of writing, it seemed to help her process it all.
I can see that,
Yeah.
to make sense of it all. And it's not just the big existential stuff, right? It's how it all connects to daily life.
Right, like the practical side of things.
Did she make any big changes based on what she learned?
She did, actually. She started volunteering at a soup kitchen.
Wow, that's amazing.
Never done anything like that before.
But it just fit with that whole service idea, right?
Yeah, it wasn't out of some sense of obligation, more like it just felt right, like it resonated with her.
Like she was drawn to it.
Exactly.
But was it all easy? Or were there bumps along the way?
It wasn't all smooth sailing. The article's pretty honest about that.
Oh, what kind of challenges did she face?
Well, one of the big ones. People not believing her, which, not surprising.
I can only imagine, right? Trying to explain something so personal, so beyond words. How'd she deal with that?
It was tough, honestly. Some folks just dismissed it outright.
Oh,
Others were curious, but what do you even say to that?
I know, right?
Definitely caused some tension in relationships.
That makes sense. It's like this huge gap opens up. She's seen the world differently, but others haven't.
Yeah, and how do you bridge that?
Tough question. But what I find inspiring is she didn't let the doubt stop her.
Yeah, she kept sharing, focusing on the people who were open.
That's brave, especially when you're already feeling kind of raw,
For sure.
And it's not just other people's reactions, right? There's that inner struggle too.
What do you mean?
Like trying to live up to this new understanding, this new way of being. Did she talk about that at all?
She did, and she's really honest about, not suddenly being perfect.
Yeah, that's kind of a relief to hear, actually.
Right. Like, she still got frustrated, made mistakes.
Are all human, right.
Yeah.
So how did she deal with that tension, that gap between the ideal and, reality?
She talks a lot about self-compassion, which I think is so important.
What does that mean in this context?
Like, recognizing that growth is a process, not some finish line you cross.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Did she have any, tools or practices that help with that?
She mentions finding a community of people who had also had spiritual experiences.
Oh, wow. Like a support group.
Kind of, yeah. They shared stories, encouraged each other, that kind of thing.
I can see how that would be so helpful. When you've had an experience that's outside the norm, finding others who get it.
It's validation, You're not alone.
And she also talked about staying grounded in the everyday stuff. Nature, music, loved ones, routines.
Yeah, that balance is key.
It's not about escaping reality, but finding, the sacred within it.
Beautiful way to put it.
So Sarah's story, it's powerful, it's inspiring, it makes you think. But for those of us listening who haven't had an NDE, what does it all mean?
That's a question, isn't it?
It is.
And I think the beauty is Sarah's story touches on things we all wrestle with. Finding purpose, dealing with suffering, figuring out where we fit in.
It's those big human questions.
Exactly. So even if we haven't had that specific experience, we can still connect with those themes.
It's not about her journey exactly, but the broader lessons.
Right. The insights she gained and how she chose to live because of them.
So what can we take away from all this?
Yeah.
What applies to us, no matter what we believe?
One big takeaway for me is that we all have a purpose, something unique to contribute.
It might not be saving the world, right?
Right, but it matters. It's those small acts of love, serving others, making things a bit brighter.
It's finding purpose in the ordinary, like Sarah with teaching, volunteering, her community.
Exactly, and remembering that even small actions ripple outwards.
And that self-compassion thing, that's huge too.
Absolutely. We're all works in progress, making mistakes. It's not about being perfect, but about trying to live by our values.
Even when we mess up.
Even then. And Sarah's story really shows the power of community.
Having your people.
The ones who support you, challenge you, help you grow, whether it's a faith community, friends, or just people who get you.
It makes a difference.
A huge one. And lastly, I think Sarah's story reminds us to stay open.
Open to what?
To the possibility of something more than what we can see and touch. That mystery that's always there.
Like embracing the unknown.
Exactly. Whether it's a higher power or just the vastness of the universe, that sense of wonder keeps us curious, humble, connected to something bigger.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Sarah's near-death experience, I'm left feeling hopeful, you know.
I get that.
Like even when things feel dark or uncertain, there's always that potential for light, for growth, for finding meaning.
Beautiful. That's a powerful message to carry with us.
It is, isn't it? Sarah's story reminds us that life is precious, that we can make a difference, and that even when faced with the unknown, we can find hope, meaning, connection.
It's been a privilege exploring this with you.
Likewise. And is everyone listening? Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope it sparked some curiosity, some reflection, maybe even inspired you to approach your own life with a little more heart, a little more wonder.